everyone and welcome to our presentation. Today we are going to present to you about presentation 2, the key steps. We are the presenters. I am Pornraksa and my teammates are Erin, Iso, and Jeff. Our last presentation was about how to make an effective presentation. Our topic today is a continuation of that presentation. Please turn to page 130 and 131 to follow along with our topic. So today we will cover the key steps of a presentation, starting from the beginning or the introduction, the main part or the core, and the closing or the conclusion. After that, we will demonstrate the process by giving a sample presentation. Now let's move on to our first topic, the introduction. Giving a good introduction is very essential to every presentation. What does an introduction do? 1. It tells the audience what the presentation is going to be about. Secondly, it gives information on the presenter or the speaker of the presentation. An introduction section also serves as a greeting and a welcome message to the audience. So how does this go exactly? The first thing that the presenter should do is to greet the audience and welcome them to the presentation, thanking them for being here. Then, this will make sure that the audience will be more comfortable and it will give a good first impression. Also, about giving a good impression, a little tip is that you have to make sure that you are dressed appropriately for the occasion. Then, introduce yourself and your background. This includes your name and your relevant job. For example, I am Oliver Kahn and I am the CEO of FC Bayern Munich. Thanks everyone for being here for our first tour of FC Bayern Hotel. The next important thing is to tell the audience of what the topic is going to be about. You should be specific so the audience would know what to expect. Yeah, the audience knows what the topic is going to be when they sign up for this presentation. But when your presentation has a clear goal and objective, it will be easier for you to plan out the rest of the presentation as well. So this can be done by putting in the table of contents, and then you can briefly go through each area you're covering. Another thing you can say in the introduction is to tell the audience that they are allowed to ask questions at the end of the presentation. The key to making a good introduction is that you must make the audience interested in what you're going to say by being dynamic. If the audience is interested, they will be more attentive to the presentation and what's going on. This means that your presentation will be more effective and the message of the presentation is carried through.
Now, let's get to the body of your presentation. This is where you will be presenting your main information or providing your product demonstration or something along these lines. It is important that you organize your content in a way that is easy to understand and follow for your listeners, along with speaking clearly and at an appropriate volume. You should line your presentation script with signal words or phrases in order to signal changes or key transitions in your presentation. By using key phrases or words to show a transition from one phase to another, your listeners can better follow your content and will be more receptive to your message. Let's first take a look at the beginning. Did you see what I did there? I said, let's first take a look at. This is a signal phase that showed to you that I was beginning. When someone hears a phrase such as this, they automatically clue into the fact that the information to follow is relevant. Some other phrases you might use are, to begin with, firstly, let's begin by looking at, just as a few examples. The next important factor of an effective presentation is pacing, and making sure not to linger or spend too much time on one aspect. The importance of this is not only in regards to time allotment of the presentation itself, but in order to ensure that your listeners don't get bored or begin to lose focus when one section is being talked about beyond what they may feel is necessary. Whether you are presenting alone or in a group, we can use key phrases again to keep our presentation flowing along. We might say something like, "That covers everything on this topic." Or, "We can delve deeper into this at a later time, should you wish to know more." When presenting in a group, we can remind ourselves or our co-presenters to remain diligent and stay on timing by saying such things as, "Time is moving on, so let's now turn to," or "That is all I have to say about that," and simply, "Let's now move on to." By signaling ourselves in such a way, we can ensure our presentation runs smoothly and we don't get overly caught up on one aspect or one section. We want to ensure that our entire message is delivered, not simply a section of it. While we are presenting to our audience, we can draw their attention to certain aspects of the presentation we may want them to focus on by utilizing our key phrases yet again. A presenter would often say, "As you can see here," "On this slide you might note," or "Two key areas of focus are." By signaling our listeners in this fashion, they can be aware that important information is coming and that they should take note of it. So all throughout your presentation, you should be aiming to guide your listeners from point to point to ensure your message is delivered clearly and effectively in the manner you wish to portray, and by providing the information in a timely manner and in an organized fashion, you can ensure that your listeners are intent and are following your message along. By mastering the use of key phrases and signal words, you can subconsciously guide your listeners to where you need them to be. Now, let's take a look at how you might handle concluding your presentation.
Now let's take a look at the last step of a presentation, which is the closing or the conclusion. Some of you guys might be wondering if giving a good conclusion really matters. The answer is yes. Closings or conclusions are as crucial as the introduction of a presentation because it allows you to summarize or re-emphasize the presentation's main ideas, and secondly, helps you emotionally connect with your audience by giving your final thoughts on the topic of your presentation. It also offers you the chance to leave a memorable, lasting impression on your audience, and lastly, encourage your audience to consider and take action on the topic you have just presented. So here, I will present 4 essential steps to a good, effective conclusion when giving a presentation. Firstly, when concluding a presentation, the presenter should use transition words or phrases to let the audience know that you're at the end of your presentation. You can use expressions like "to sum up," "in a nutshell," "in conclusion," or other expressions to signal the end of your presentation. By using these expressions, your listeners will get the sense that you're ending your presentation in a clear, organized way. Secondly, you should summarize your presentation's main ideas in chronological order by using transition signals like firstly, secondly, and last but not least to tie down all the main points into one concise sentence. This will help your audience understand the message you want to share, the purpose of your presentation, and the reason why your message is important. This is the final chance for you to show your audience how all your ideas are linked together. The third thing you should consider is your final thoughts on the topic of your presentation. Giving your final thoughts is essential because it helps you to inspire your audience to keep thinking about your presentation or motivate your listeners to implement the information that you have presented. This will allow you to leave a powerful impression on your audience. Finally, it will be best to wrap up your conclusion by thanking the audience and encouraging them to ask questions. For example, you can say, "Thank you for listening," or "Thank you very much for your attention." Also, invite the audience to ask questions by saying, "Are there any questions?" or "If there are any questions, please ask them now." Always remember that strong conclusions are what the audience remembers most. So make your final impression as good as your first impression. Do not just walk away after presenting your ideas, but end your presentation with a compelling conclusion. This will help to make your presentation more effective and sensational. Thank you.
Our group has prepared a short demonstration to help you understand and fully acknowledge the chapter. So as you are watching, please keep in mind all the elements explained earlier. We all know that a good starting point of the presentation depends on a decent introductions, right? So did the CEO of Lee's Kitchen. As most of you guys have seen Iso's product launch presentation in previous, let's go more in depth with her on how she actually delivered each part of the presentation. Introductions have to be well delivered since it is the first part of the presentation where critical information is introduced. But how? The key here is to stay calm and deliver a confident introduction. Biggest mistakes people make even before they start their presentation is by showing their nervousness. It doesn't matter whether you get nervous or not, it depends whether you show it. So as we can see, Iso is standing still and making the audience feel safe by greeting and welcoming them.
How are you? Good to see you all. It's very nice to see so many of you here on such a sunny day.
When she introduces herself, she brings her inflection down at the end of her tone to show confidence. So instead of,
Hi, my name is Iso Lee.
she says,
Hi, my name is Iso Lee.
She also expands to tell her basic backgrounds and most importantly, gives credentials on what she does and what she can offer to the audience. So Iso, not just simply saying,
I'm the CEO of the Lee's Kitchen, and I've been working for 10 years.
She includes,
I present convenient kitchenaries to the world and offer enhanced satisfaction in the kitchen.
As a result, the audience will be more involved and interested in the presenter. Now that she has gained the interest of the audience, she proceeds to move into the topic by saying,
Today, I'm going to talk about
and present the table of contents which will help the audience to see the overall parts of the presentation.
and this is the table of contents.
Also, she briefly but kindly tells the audience to ask questions when she is ready to answer.
If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them at the end of the session.
Now as Iso starts her main part of the presentation, she begins with
Okay, to begin with, let's look at
and start to bring out her ideas to the audience.
related to durability. You'll never have to buy another one for 10 years.
And she'll continue to say all the stuff that she has prepared to persuade the audience. When she is all done with her first topic, she moves to the second by saying,
That's all I have time for durability. Now let's look at the second point.
During this part, Iso may use phrases like, as you can see, key areas in relation to, or as this transparency shows, etc., to further expand her ideas in much more smoother ways. Finally, in the last part of her topic, she starts off by saying,
Time is moving on, so let's turn to the third and most important area of the presentation.
making sure to tell the audience that she is aware of the time during the presentation. And as the main parts are fully elaborated, she concludes by saying,
So that's all I have to say about the Lee's Kitchen fry pan.
and moves on to conclude her whole idea at once in her conclusion. To sum up in her closing, she begins with,
In conclusion,
to signal the end of her presentation. Then, she summarizes her previous main points in chronological order by using transition phrases like firstly, secondly, and last but not least. She also makes sure her final thoughts are clearly delivered so that it could leave a powerful impression on the audience and encourage them to think about the presentation.
our ultimate goal is to seek the pleasure of customer satisfaction.
Now the final step must be the gratitude toward the audience for attending or participating in the presentation.
That brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. Are there any questions? Thank you.
In conclusion, our group has presented the key steps of a good presentation today. Firstly, we looked at the introduction of a presentation, and secondly, the main part of a presentation. Then, we looked at the closing of a presentation, and finally, we showed you the demonstration of a good presentation. Moreover, we looked at the important guidelines for each step of a presentation and also the expressions or phrases that are used to transition from one topic to another. Hopefully, our guide will help you to start and finish your presentation professionally. So that's it for our presentation. Thank you very much for listening.